Joanne Stradrom, who's one of our third-year photography students, who will be talking about one of the projects that she took part in as part of our response to the British Art Show. So, yeah, you'll see. We'll talk about this project. So, I'm going to talk about two projects that we did in our sort of response to the British Art Show. Firstly, the Workshop of the Dead, which is also known as the Zombie Apocalypse, which Joanna is going to read out a short statement, which is a project that we worked with the artist Maki Suzuki from Ibeke, who worked with us for a day, and I'll talk a bit more about that. The second project I'm going to talk about is a project I did with my first year students, and I asked them to respond to themes in the British Art Show. And I'll show some examples of the work that they've been making. I think they've got to submit their work for a deadline on Friday, so some of the work is hot off the darkroom, hot off the right out there. So it's just a little bit of a work in progress. Okay, so we'll start off looking at the Workshop of the Dead. As I said, it was led by Maki Suzuki, who very kindly came down for the day to work with us. It was very much his idea to work with this concept of the Workshop of the Dead. We actually did the workshop on the 31st of October, which is Halloween. So he had this idea to look at kind of ideas of ritual, thinking about the significance of the day, and sort of drawing it through to the work that Ibeke did, the Fatima work, which also talks about pilgrimage and ritual, and in ways there were sort of links to this. But very much part of his practice is about collaboration, which is why we were so keen to work with an artist. So my idea when it came to setting up a workshop with an artist from the British Art Show was that a lot of the artists are working collaboratively, and I think that's something that as a student, I was part of a collaborative group of students who worked together to produce exhibitions, and I found that experience invaluable, and I really wanted our students to also have some of the experience of what it would be like to collaborate, possibly with people that you didn't know at all. So I came up with the idea to get students right across the School of Art, Design and Fashion to work together. So actually on the day there were many people that you didn't know at all, and to work together to produce a performance. So we would actually be making an artwork and in a way interrupting the British Art Show a little bit on the day as well. So we sort of made something in response to that. So we started off the day with Maki Suzuki talking just about some of the practices, the collaborative and performative practices that he's taken part in over the years with Ibeke as a collaborative practice. And we then went on to the workshop, and I think at this point I'm going to pass over to Joanne to read read your summary of the day, so just as an introduction. And while she's reading, I'll sort of skim through images of the sequences as the workshop kind of developed. Okay.
Yes, I might slightly repeat a little what Mandy said, but I wanted to read the whole piece. It's titled Zombies Take Southampton. So, on Monday, October 31st, 2016, a zombie accomplice emerged, taking over Southampton Solent University and the Southampton City Art Gallery, making this Halloween one to remember. In collaboration with the British Art Show 8, Solent University ran a workshop with graphic designer Maki Suzuki. Suzuki is part of a collaborative, Ibeke, whose work entered the Fatima is currently exhibited as part of the British Art Show 8 at Southampton City Art Gallery. Solent SIDF BAS8 Zombie Accomplice Workshop, with its name evoking visions of epidemic destruction, was a great success. With a concept inspired by a dream Suzuki had about the Workshop of the Dead, along with photography course leader Mandy Jandrel, this dream came to life. Its concept challenged the idea of collaborations, enabling makeup design and photography students to come together to combine skills, creating a performance piece of art. Participants developed an incredible project, encouraging teamwork throughout the day, making the experience extraordinary. The end result of the workshop resulted in amazing looking zombies, which contributed to giving onlookers a frightful sight. As we made our journey to the gallery, everybody stared at us. Although the transformations into zombies were effective, it is the process of putting together visual outcomes which particularly were of interest. It may be the artifacts of a piece that captures attention, but without the process of development, the end result would not exist. If anything, the process of creation and collaboration between artists were the most vital aspects of Suzuki's idea could have expressed. Since the beginning, with a dress code, all come dressed in black to encourage teamwork, there was a constant occurring motive of unity. It is because of the unity of artists coming together that the Workshop of the Dead became a reality. Participants also learned the value in communication, building relationships, and others during the development of the project. The workshop was therefore effective in demonstrating how communication and relationships are vital to accomplish success. However, none of this would have been achieved without Mandy, who contacted Maki and organized the workshop. On behalf of all the participants, thank you for enabling us as students to challenge ourselves and to use our creativity. Another thank you goes out to Maki Suzuki, who took the time to come and share his dream and ideas with us. We have taken away many important skills in collaboration from you both and had an amazing day. A special thank you also goes out to Luna, who came along and braved all the zombies. She was Suzuki's daughter, so she survived with us. Yes. After the eventful and entertaining day, the university will never be the same, neither with Southampton. The Workshop of the Dead set the bar high, and with every Halloween after 2016, the zombie accomplice will never be forgotten.
Thank you very much. Thank you. One of the really key ideas behind this workshop was really to, you mentioned this thing about feeling intimidated by going into a gallery space. I can't remember what the words you used were, but it sort of made me think of that. And one thing I always sort of try and think about when I'm thinking about putting workshops together like this are ways that you can break down that kind of barrier of this gallery space might be inaccessible, or I might not understand what the artwork is about, or how will I react, how will I engage with what's going on there. And so it was very much, it was very important that it was a very active engagement with it, and also a bit of an interruption and also a bit of ownership as well. And Rhonda, thank you also for helping so much with the workshop. It was very much about also giving the participants of the workshop a kind of an ownership in the space as well, to contribute to, in a way, to some of the dialogues that are sort of evident in the British Art Show. So I think using a very accessible thematic, the Workshop of the Dead, linking it to a very, a popular, the Halloween, it's kind of a very popular and easily accessible idea, really did help. This became quite an engaging and a very fun day, actually. So the basic start of it was that everyone was to come dressed in black and bring a roll of masking tape. So the skeletons were made with masking tape. It was, again, a very physical way of working together to create the skeletons, and obviously working with the hair and makeup students at our university as well to sort of, work together and produce these characters. And I think for many, particularly photography students, it was quite interesting because they'd never really engaged with the idea of performance art as well. And I think it gave them a really interesting way to start thinking about their own practice in terms of what performativity can mean in the photographic. So being a performer, in terms of how one might think about constructing images, what does it mean to direct a performance? What does it mean to actually physically be in a space, to interrupt that space, to take ownership in a way that's, it's not aggressive. Well, it looks kind of aggressive, but in a kind of a fun, in a fun way. So those were the kind of core ideas, and I think it was good fun. It was a good fun day. But I'll probably go on. Yeah, this is. Yeah, it's all quite right. The makeup artist really did do a very good job. It was really horrific on the day. So that was quite good. So I'll move on to the second project I did with students, which is working with first year students. Many of our first year students come from many different backgrounds, have lots of different kinds of experiences. Again, many of them have never been into an art gallery before, so those ideas around intimidation, around space, around access, around going into a space and how to engage with it. So I was very keen to find ways to link their coursework and their learning with the British Archer. We had this amazing opportunity to actually engage with it and actually physically work with the different artworks and the thematics. We'd done a unit prior to this one, which got students to explore different thematics in artwork. So we were looking at things like the idea of the intimate, the idea of the domestic, the idea of work in public spaces, or the documentary, or the typology. We were sort of exploring some of those themes in the first 6 weeks. So we had these kind of thematics as a sort of foundation. What I then set is this next project, which is a 7-week project where I asked students, following gallery visits. Rhonda gave some wonderful talks for our students. I asked the students to pick 2 or 3 artworks in the exhibition, and not necessarily to look at the way that the outward physicality of the project, but really to dig deeper in the work and to start sort of exploring some of the thematics that the work was dealing with, and how they might then respond to the project. And in quite a challenging way, the project was set for them to use 35mm film cameras. They're very analog in this very digital, virtual British art show, to use black and white film and darkroom printing. So in a way to actually strip back to kind of in a very essential way of working, but really so that we could focus on these kind of thematics and how one would formulate a kind of response to the thematics in the British Art Show. So we started off the project. Thank you again, Ron, to this, the back of your going on gallery visits, which were timetabled into the unit. We started off with the John Hansard Gallery, and then had the day in the Southampton City Art Gallery and other spaces too. Many of the students revisited the gallery spaces several times, and I thought this was a really good way that having the initial visit and having it as part of their assessment brief, actually that initial intimidation of I don't know about this gallery space, this really helped, and they've gone back, and they've really taken a kind of an ownership of those spaces, which is again a very important part of what I wanted to achieve with these students. And many of them have sat through the Rachel McLean piece 4 times, I think. It's an hour long. Really invested time. We've had some absolutely incredible discussions unpicking that piece and looking at its relevance to people of different generations and how we might respond to it in different ways. And it's been a really fascinating few weeks. So they've worked since November to develop their responses to the British Art Show. As I said, they visited the spaces formally through timetable sessions, but informally in groups, and many have gone back several times. And they've also sort of, it's also quite interesting to sort of set a project which makes you focus so much on thematics that you almost don't realise that you've just learned how to use a 35mm camera and print something really well in a darkroom. So those kind of technical skills, which also can sometimes be quite intimidating for students. It's quite, if you've grown up using digital cameras, as Sean will probably be nodding her head there, it can be quite an alien process, but I think it's almost the destruction of having these thematics to work with that just, all of a sudden there were these amazing prints that were being made, that just almost happened just because they were using them. So what I'm going to do just for the last few minutes is just show some of the responses. I think I've got about 8 or 9 students' responses. We've got a group of 32 students, so they've all made really interesting responses to the work. And these are first year, this is in the first semester of first year. This is Chelsea Westcombe's work. She was responding to the work of Stuart Whipps. And what I thought really interesting is that each student took away a part of some of the themes of the work, Chelsea is from a town called Calne, which is well known because of the Harris factory, which was actually bombed in the Second World War. And her family has lived in that town for generations and generations and generations. So what she actually picked up from Stuart Woods was this, looking at the relationship between her community and the legacy of this Harris factory. And actually the format her work has taken is dramatically different, maybe to the way that Stuart Woods is working, but I thought what was really interesting was that she was looking at really the kind of issues behind, some of the interests that Stuart Woods is drawing out in his work. And she started working, actually taking her printing onto the next level, starting to collage. She's actually cut up her negatives and reconstructed them into print. So this is, she asked me to say this, but this is a sort of a test print. She's working on it a little bit further, but I thought it was a really interesting response to the Stuart Woods piece. Chloe Richardson had a really quite unique, she was looking initially at the Bromberg and Channeran work, and she started looking at some of their other work, and she started questioning what documentary could mean and what the document could be. And actually her work has taken a turn, and I think what's really nice about this project is that the students have worked over 7 weeks, actually have started off at a starting point, and many of them have responded over time. So the project has developed and changed quite a lot from where they've started off. So this one, actually what she started to sort of question is the boundaries between reality and a kind of a dreamlike state. So almost sort of tapping into some ideas around surrealism in the document. So it's been quite an interesting journey for her to go from looking at the kind of this idea of surveillance and the document and so on to where she's ended up with these quite ephemeral images, working a lot with reflections and so on. Matt Scott, his response was to Pablo Bronstein's work. I think he was looking very much at this sort of idea of architecture, ideology behind architecture, utopian ideas and so on and so forth, and started looking at post-war architecture in Southampton, started exploring this relationship between the architecture and how people use it, this sort of everyday vernacular use of the architecture and so on. So again, a kind of a development on in that kind of direction. So I'll probably just run through the next few. Jessica Mills responding to Magali Lewis's work. Kelly Hall responding to Rachel McLean, and I thought him quite interesting. She's used a family member who's a young girl, and she's sort of looking at this kind of the fear, the anxiety that Rachel McLean piece was really tapping into with young people. But then again, also taking it into quite a different direction. Millie Doyle, who's responding to Alexandra de Cunha, she was interested in the use of materials. So she started looking at objects and materiality, and started looking at objects that we might think of as throwaway. She started using this plastic cup and placing it into different scenarios, and really looking at this kind of relationship between a very everyday object and the geometry of everyday architectural spaces and so on. Sarah Ibanez Reguero made this project responding to the work of Lawrence Abu Hampton, and this is shot in Bilbao, and she's really interested in ideas around shifts in consumerism and the impact that globalization has on small market traders in a town like Bilbao. So taking these ideas of globalization and consumerism and so on. Shannon Osborne was a very interesting response to Jessica Warboys and Callie Spooner. I mean, I think she was, again, looking at this idea of the documentary and the domestic and how she might sort of explore that in the areas where she comes from, sort of suburban. And Tala responding to Andrea Badner. I think that's where we're going to end. So just a very a big thank you very much to Maki Suzuki for working with us in the Workshop of the Dead. To Louise Koish, who was really instrumental in setting up, helping us to get access to Maki Suzuki, to Hayward Touring for facilitating that, to Rhonda, and to all the staff, also the John Hansard Gallery and the Southampton City Art Gallery particularly for facilitating our visits and our access, and allowing us to bring zombies into the Southampton City Gallery, which was quite a big ask, but they were very graceful about it, so that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so thanks.